dispelling some myths, and the most frequent and very, very much occurred question is always who built the pyramids. One of the more enduring popular myths is the idea that the Great Pyramids at Giza in northern Egypt were constructed by a vast army of maltreated slaves. How this falsehood has flourished for centuries and even transformed popular perceptions of a historical event can be laid firmly at the feet of Greek historian Herodotus, who was living between 484 to 420 BC. Although he is considered to be the father of history, Herodotus was responsible for passing on a number of dubious and false facts. The pyramids built by slaves is one such. Herodotus' tale, in book number 2 of his histories, Herodotus tells us that in building the Great Pyramid, the pharaoh Khufu, called Cheops by the Greeks, brought the people to utter misery, having compelled all the Egyptians to work for him in gangs of 100,000 men. Each gang for 3 months to build a pyramid, 20 years in the making. While it is true that slavery certainly existed in pharaonic Egypt, as it has in nearly all cultures and civilizations, both ancient and modern, its study has been complicated by the terminology the ancient Egyptians themselves used in referring to different classes of servitude throughout Egypt's long history. However, by interpreting the evidence from just the commonly used words suggests there was 3 types of enslavement in ancient Egypt: chattel slavery, bonded labor, and forced labor. Even so, Egyptologists believe nearly all pyramid builders were drawn from a mix of 4,000 to 5,000 permanent skilled workers and some 20,000 temporary laborers working in some form of cooperative effort. These free men arrived from their villages at the building site to assist for a few months at a time, probably during the annual Nile floods when agricultural work was suspended. These workers were typically paid in graded notional rations of bread and beer that were tradable for other goods and services. This is not to say slaves were not involved in some way, just that they were clearly not the majority of the builders. Moreover, it was also not unheard of for work parties to compete against each other in building tasks. A work gang from a particular village who moved a block of limestone the furthest in one day might be rewarded with extra rations of food, drink, or even makeup. So this is basically the truth. That's why this is a huge myth. So, contrary to popular belief, it wasn't slaves who built the pyramids. We know this because archaeologists have located the remains of a purpose-built village for the thousands of workers who built the famous Giza pyramids nearly 4,500 years ago. And it was incredible as the Egyptologists and archaeologists actually uncovered that. They uncovered ancient name stamps and seals, bureaucratic evidence of how the officials kept track of the huge operation to feed and house the workers. Animal bones found at the village show that the workers were getting the best cuts of meat. More than anything, there were bread jars, hundreds and thousands of them, enough to feed all the workers who slept in long purpose-built dormitories. Slaves would never have been treated this well, so we think that these laborers were recruited from farms, perhaps from a region much further down the Nile near Luxor. And the laborers would have been enticed by the mix of high-quality food and the opportunity to work on such a prestigious state project. Today, many of the highly experienced archaeological workmen at the pyramids come from the same region, though they are paid in hard currency, rather than prime beef and accolades. Building the pyramids was not an easy job. The skeletons of some of the workmen show that their muscles were under a large amount of strain. But they may not have resented their jobs too much. In graffiti left near the pharaoh Khufu's burial chamber in the Great Pyramid of Giza, they painted the name of their work crew, the Friends of Khufu Gang.